Dear participant, it's my pleasure to be here with you today, even if it's only through a pre-recorded video. So my name is Nicolas Jonas. I am team leader at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in Hamburg, Germany. So today I would like to introduce you with a new monitoring framework that will be used for monitoring the Marrakesh Framework for Action. My presentation of today will be structured into four different moments. The first one, I will explain to you what is the conceptual framework that will be used for monitoring the Marrakesh Framework for Action. Then I will explain to you how this conceptual framework was translated into a monitoring framework. Then I will give you some elements about the data collection strategy that will be adopted. And finally, we will have a very short look at what the next generation of the global report on adult learning and education will look like. So, first of all, I wanted to highlight that for monitoring the Marrakesh Framework for Action, we will not exactly follow the structure of the action points of the document, the Marrakesh Framework for Action. Indeed, we noticed that one of the weaknesses of the previous Marrakesh framework, the previous monitoring framework for the Belém framework for action, was that it was not so useful for policymakers because with a monitoring framework that follows only a thematic structure, we are not able to identify what are the most relevant policy levelers. What we wanted to do with this new monitoring framework is to show to policymakers what could be the influence of their actions if they decide to improve or to make investment in one of the aspects of the Marrakesh Framework for Action. So to do so, what we would like to do is to follow a quite well-known structure when it comes to analyzing or studying the education sector. It's what we can call a systematic approach, meaning that we would like to see the adult learning and education as a sector in itself. So taking the usual approach of this kind of conceptual methodology, we want to make a distinction between external factors, input, process, and output. So if we go back to the Marrakesh Framework for Action, these four different components of adult learning and education will be now the international cooperation as external factor, adult learning and education system organization as input, participation and inclusion as a process, and quality of adult learning and education for lifelong learning as outputs. So this is a conceptual framework that was used to design the monitoring framework for the Marrakesh Framework for Action. So let's see now what is this monitoring framework. So as I explained to you, we have adopted a several layer approach for this monitoring framework for action. So as I told you, everything starts from the text, from the document itself, and we reorganized all the elements included in the Marrakesh Framework for Action under four main components. So international cooperation, system organization, participation and inclusion, and quality of adult learning and education for lifelong learning. These are the two first layers of our framework. Then comes the third layer, which is a set of monitoring dimensions. So in total, we developed 12 monitoring dimensions from 2 to 4, depending on the component. So I would like to insist today more on the component on participation and inclusion, just because we cannot go into too much detail in such a short time. So participation and inclusion was divided into three monitoring dimensions: access, participation, and inclusion. And if you look at the Marrakesh Framework for Action, many aspects can fall under these three different categories of access, participation, and inclusion. So as a fourth layer for the monitoring framework, we went more into detail, and we divided each of these three dimension into different indicators. So for access, we decided to take the public provision of adult learning and education, the access to lifelong learning opportunities, and the existing guidance systems. For participation, we decided to take as indicators the number of learners and the existence of flexible pathways. And for the inclusiveness, we would like to look into two different indicators, one about diversity and one about equity. It is important to note that each of the indicators will not be represented by only one score or one statistics. Our intention is not to make any kind of benchmark between countries or between the systems. Every indicator will be informed by several, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the cases, statistical sources. The idea is to be able to draw a comprehensive image of the state of the adult learning and education sector for one given topic or indicator. So to put it in a nutshell and to give you an overall picture of this monitoring framework, you have here an image representing all the layers of our framework. So everything starts from the center with the Marrakesh Framework for Action. Then you have as a second layer the four components that I explained to you in the first slides. Then as a third layer you have the different monitoring dimension, and the last layer outside of the circle includes all the indicators that will be used in the monitoring framework for action. We can note here that the indicators are still under discussion, and we will gather an expert groups in the second half of this year to go much into detail and to be able to finalize this list of indicators and to finalize the list of statistics that will be used for each of the indicators. So this approach is quite new because it's an indicator-based approach, so it's very different from what was done for monitoring the BELEM framework for action. So we have to come up with a very specific data collection strategy in order to be able to implement this monitoring framework. So let's see in details what we would like to do. So first of all, usually what was done for the BELEM framework for action is that we used to approach national commissions, governments, with a very traditional questionnaire asking some information about the different action points that were agreed in the BELEM framework for action. We will follow to a certain extent the same approach, meaning that for some of the indicators, about half of them, we will still go through national teams, so they will be able to share with us their official statistics on adult learning and education. But we would like to make also use of the new technologies and to be able to produce some data, some indirect data that will serve as indicators as well. For example, if we are interested in knowing what is the exposure of the adult population to informal learning through the internet, this is a kind of information that a national authority cannot have. But if we agree on a specific methodology for such a statistics, we can use big data to be able to provide comparative information about it. Another aspect of the data that we would like to collect is that we would like to make use of the existing data source. We know that countries are quite overloaded by a lot of global monitoring processes. So for adult learning and education, through, for example, the efforts that countries have to do regarding reporting on SDGs, we would like to use existing data sources and existing monitoring processes. So we will not duplicate the efforts. So in general, this idea behind this data collection strategy is to reduce the workload of the national team, to be a bit more innovative, to have a more complete picture of the adult learning and education sector, and also to think about some synergies with existing statistic processes. So to combine all these different approaches, we have also to think about practical solutions for collecting data. So we would like to develop an online platform with several spaces for all the stakeholders that could have an interesting point of view regarding the state of adult learning and education sectors. So the first space will be for UNESCO. This is where the data collection will be organized, and all the data sets, international data sets, will be prepared. A second space will be exclusively for member states. This is where the national teams will be able to share with us their official statistics, but also where they will validate the data produced by indirect data produced by UIL. Next, we would like to have a third space, and this is quite new regarding the previous data collection strategy. We would like to open a space for stakeholders who are running adult learning and education programs in the field. So mainly civil society organizations, but also academic and private sector that was quite absent of the previous data collection. We would like to have some indicators specifically for these partners. So they will add very important and relevant information about the whole status of the sector in their country. And finally, and it is also quite new, we want to keep a space for the public. So the public can, everybody who has an interest in getting information on adult learning and education sector, will have the opportunity to access the dataset and to build its own picture of the sector. So everybody will have the opportunity to contribute to the debates and to contribute about what the state is doing regarding adult learning and education. We think that it's a good way to improve advocacy for the sector at national and at global level. So to make this data collection happen and to be sure that every country and every stakeholder is able to share with us data we would like, we want also to support countries and to support civil society organizations for all of these aspects of the data collection. So what you can see on this slide, the 4 different aspects that we want to develop. First of all, and it's very important, we want to develop a kind of dictionary or wiki that will include all the definitions of the concepts used in the questionnaire and in the indicator. So we come up with a commonly agreed definition. Second, in the UIL Learning Hub, we will host some self-paced training to explain how the data collection is working, but also to explain how to fill in correctly each of the indicators, or the most problematic one as well, at least. We want also to conduct some in-person workshops in different regions of the world with, as we did for the previous GRAIL, the support of some partners, some technical partners. So to just with this idea still to build the capacities of the national teams. And finally, we want to develop the set of technical papers to explain the methodologies that are used for each of the indicators. So the idea is to improve the transparency of the data collection and to also to make the debate, the public debates on what we are doing more. I mean, to make this debate happening. So before concluding my presentation, I just would like to show you what will be the next generation of GRAIL. So far, the Global Report on Adult Learning and Education was published by UIL every 3 years. But now it will be published every 4 years. And between two reports, we would like to be able to publish thematic reports on specific topics that are of interest. So we are thinking, for example, for the next thematic reports to focus on inclusion and on climate change. But all these topics are still, of course, under discussion. And another new thing that will be developed through GRAIL and through the GRAIL publication, it is the possibility of producing GRAIL profiles. So far, the nature of the data collected by GRAIL did not allow to publish national profile. And now with this indicator-based approach, we will have this possibility of having national profiles, but also regional profiles. So meaning that every country will have the possibility to compare itself with the neighborhood countries and with the region of the world, depending on what are their interests. So the global report on adult learning and education, the next one will be published in 2026, will be quite short finally, with one chapter by dimension, so 4 chapters in total, and will be exclusively indicator based with very few and short comparative analysis. The data will be displayed and grouped by regions, and to access the data at national level, we will have to go to the platform. So here we will be able to see all the detail of the data collection. Thank you. This is this was my last slide. So I hope you found this presentation interesting, and you will be supportive for this new strategy. And please do not hesitate to get in touch with us if you need more information, and if you, of course, you are willing to support our work. I wish you a very good rest of the meeting, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.